statements and also biconditional statements. So let's jump right in. A conditional statement can be written in the PQ form. We talked about this, the last class. The P part is the hypothesis. This is nothing new. The Q part is your conclusion. This is the same as last time when I talked about when the first part is the if and the second part is the then. So far nothing is changing now. Again, we did this last time. Remember when I used to circle the first part as the hypothesis and I would label it H, and then I would circle the second part and label it C for conclusion. I want you guys to remember that I never circled the if or the then because those are separate. Those always are in every single statement. So for this question here, it says state the hypothesis. Same as before. The measure of angle 1 is equal to 15. The conclusion here is angle 1 is acute. The way you write it with symbols, you put the P, use a little arrow, and then you say Q. The arrow means like a then. So P, then Q. And so I wrote it out here for you. Go ahead and fill that in. So we're often going to see this now in symbolic form. We're going to use the letters. The letters will help us because now we're going to start switching the letters up. And you'll see what I mean here in just a second. Now we need to talk about a negation. A negation is the opposite of something. Now you have to be careful. If I say what's the opposite of green, you don't say, yellow. You would have to, you say not green is the opposite because we don't want to exclude other colors. If I say what's the opposite of a dog, you don't want to say cat. So you have to be careful with how you say these because you really don't want to exclude choices. The symbol is just like the top of your congruency symbol. It's like just a tilde. This is our new symbol. We're going to use this often today. And this next part says the negation of the sky is blue. So what is the opposite of the sky is blue? Don't change the color. That is a big mistake people often make. We're going to say the sky is not blue. So the opposite of I love French fries. You're going to say I do not love French fries. You're just going to say the opposite, or I do not like French fries. So we're going to practice with negations. Now, there's 3 little pieces here, P, Q, and R. P, school's open. Q, it is not snowing. And R, it is raining. So we're going to have to read sentences A through C and see if the sentence is saying the same thing or the opposite. If it's the opposite, we have to use the new sign for negation. All right, so first one, if it is raining. Well, this one says it is raining, so it's exactly the same. So notice I just put an R. I need to use my arrow. That means then. The second part is school is open. Now, does the P talk about school is open? It does. So it talks exactly about P. So I'm going to just put the letter P. Now, as you can see the answers here, they start to get more difficult. We're going to say if it is snowing. Now, if you look at Q here, it says if it is not snowing. So what's the opposite of it not snowing? Then you would say it is snowing. So for my answer, I put not Q. Then I put my arrow. That means then. It says school is not open. Okay, so P talks about school is being open. So what's the opposite of school being open? Of course, that means the school is closed or it is not open. So I'm going to put not P. Okay, let's try this one more time. Let's erase some of this. Okay, if it is not raining, look up here. This one says it is raining. So you need the opposite. So it is not are. Put the arrow. It is not snowing. Does it say that? Well, it sure does. It says it is not snowing. So that is Q. All right, so now we're going to introduce some new ideas here. So just go with me. I will explain as I go. Now, first thing I want you to notice, every sentence is going to start with the word if. Halfway through, we're going to have the word then. Okay, so every sentence, no matter what I call it, will always start with if. Halfway through, you will say then. We were already comfortable doing the conditional statements. It's what we did last time. It's the P and then the Q. And remember, we identified P's and Q's. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do something called the converse. It's right here, highlighted in blue. We're going to take the P and the Q and we're going to flip them. But remember, we still start with if. So I'm going to color code this. The angle A is acute, now flips to the front. And the angle A is 15 degrees, here in green, is now going to flip to the back. Now you have to read it and see if it has the same meaning. Now the first one said, the conditional said, if angle A is 15, then angle A is acute. That's true. 15-degree angles are acute. Now the converse says if angle A is acute, then angle A is 15. So what it's saying is every time you have an acute angle, it equals 15 degrees. And guys, that's false. Acute angles can equal anything between 1 and 89 degrees. So I said false. You have to provide a counter example. Give me one example. And I just randomly said 39 degrees. You could say anything between 1 and 89, but you couldn't say 15 since 15 was given. Okay, now moving on. One more step. We're going to take the conditional way back here where it was yellow. We talked about that one last time, but now we're going to negate the P and the Q. And you guys know what that means now. The negation is this little not. So how do you say not of this green part? Remember, I'm going back to the original sentence. Angle A is 15, then angle A is acute. I'm going to say angle A is not 15 degrees. And then I said, then it is not acute. Okay, so what it's saying is, unless it's 15 degrees, it's not acute. Because if it's not 15, it's not acute. Which, guys, is false because it could be a different degree and still be acute. So I could be 16 degrees and still be acute. So again, that one is called your inverse. Now, there is a pattern to this. You had your PQ, then you flip it, and then you go back to the PQ and you put the negation on it. And now we're going to flip it. Notice the negation is still there. So again, I'm trying to color code this for you. Notice the blue part is back in front again. So we're going to say if angle A is not acute, then angle A doesn't equal 15. So what you're saying, if it's not acute, which means as long as it's not between 1 and 89, then it doesn't equal 15. Well, that's true. So I labeled it true. So these are challenging. You have to really think. And you have to write a lot. So I know there's a lot going on here, guys. And as you can see with my next example, there's lots of writing. So if you need to pause the video and write some stuff, feel free to do that. That's the good thing about a video. All right, so I personally like to write the symbols before I write the words. So, like, notice the symbols come after the words. I really don't like that. I normally fill that in first. So, if you haven't already, fill in all of these forms. P, then Q. Q, then P. Not P, not Q. And then not Q, not P. That's the order. Now, let's look at the names again. Most of them start with a C word, except for inverse. So inverse, we have to come up with a way to memorize these. Inverse is not P, not Q. Contrapositive is a huge word. It's the one that's most messed up. You're flipping it. You're negating it. You have to come up with a way to memorize this. All right, so let's read through these together. This question says, if the shape is a square, then is a quadrilateral. Now, I can't say if it is a square. I need to call it a figure, a shape, a quadrilateral. That's a big word, though. You have to call it something. Don't say it in the beginning part. All right, we already said it was P then Q. So if it's a square, then it's a quadrilateral. All right, so that's true. So converse, let's flip it. Remember how we flipped it last time? I'm going to take this beginning part and put it at the end. And then I'm going to take the ending part and put it at the beginning. So if the shape is a quadrilateral, then it's a square. But guys, that's false because it could be a quadrilateral and be a different four-sided shape. And I said trapezoid. All right, so we're going to do some flipping again. So the blue part flips to the back, the green part flips to the front, but now we say not. So if the shape is not a square, then it is not a quadrilateral. So if it's not a square, then it's not a quadrilateral. So they're saying only squares are quadrilaterals. Again, that is false because you could say trapezoid. Okay, now again, we're going to flip them and then we're going to use the knots. So if a shape is not a quadrilateral, then it's not a square. And that's true because if it's not a quadrilateral, if it doesn't have four sides, there's no way it's a square. So that definitely is true. So something I want you guys to look at. What statements are equivalent, which means which statements are the same? All right, on this one, it wasn't it the first one and the last one, the conditional and the contrapositive? Let's go up here. Is the same thing true? Typically, they're either all true or they're in the pattern of true, false, false, true. And that's the pattern most of the ones we're going to have will be within your homework. So all true or true, false, false, true. So again, which ones are equivalent? That is your conditional statements and your contrapositive. So make sure you write that down. So we have something called a biconditional statement. Bi means two. So what we're doing is we're combining, and I wrote it over here, so I would recommend you write this part down. Write down that it's two parts. It's the P then Q and the Q then P, and they both have to be true. Okay, so this is the conditional and the converse. They both have to be true. Now, there's going to be some weird stuff going on, so please pay attention, guys. We're going to use this new abbreviation that's IFF. This is not a typo. It's shorthand for if and only if. Whenever you see if and only if, this is an indication that this is a biconditional. They will never say, guys, this is a biconditional. You have to know because they will use the words if and only if or IFF within the sentence. So that is your clue. These are major clues for you. So this next one that I already have highlighted. Now I want you to notice, does it start with the word if over here? And it doesn't. All right, so that's another major hint. But the first part is the P. It says a point is a midpoint if and only if it divides a segment into two congruent segments. All right, so this part in the middle, this if and only if, you could write it IFF. Either way is fine. This is a biconditional because no matter how you write it, P then Q or Q then P, it is true. Now, guys, here's why. It's because it's a definition. That's simple. That's why. So if it's a definition, it will always be a biconditional. Okay? So here's the way you write it with symbols. You put P and then a Q, and in the middle, there's a line with a double arrow. The arrow goes to the left and it goes to the right. And before, if you look up here, we only have the arrow to the right. This means you can go either way, P to Q, Q to P. You have to use the arrow both directions. Now, how do you read it? You say P if and only if Q. You actually have to say it. All right, so it says, write a true conditional statement for the sentence above. Okay, so we already kind of talked about this. Where did I get, let's change colors. I don't know if you can see this purple. Ooh, that's kind of bad. Let's go back to green. All right, so I put a point is a midpoint. Where did I get this? You guys see I got it right there. A point is the midpoint. And it divides a segment into two congruent segments. And I got that from right there. Now, I didn't, during class, actually write all of this out because it is a lot of writing. How do you write this in PQ form? Okay, I would have to say if a point is a midpoint, then it divides a segment into two congruent segments. Okay, this is old stuff. We know P then Q. How do you do Q then P? It's easy. We're just going to flip it. Now, can I say if it divides a segment? What's it? It is a point. So if a point divides a segment into two congruent segments, then it's a midpoint. Okay, now they're both true. I mean, we know they're true if it's a biconditional because it's a definition. All right, so we're getting close to the end. You guys are doing a good job here. Okay, so we have a definition. So as soon as we know it's a definition, we say we can write this as a biconditional. Okay, so the first job is to write it in conditional statement form, which means P then Q. So I said if a shape is a quadrilateral, then it's a polygon with four sides. Okay, so P then Q. Again, if you are ever asked this, I'm okay if you circle and either draw an arrow or just label with a P and a Q or H and C. All right, because you have lots of writing, there's no reason to keep writing it out. Okay, so how do you flip it? Well, I just put the Q in front and the P in the back. Notice I already did this. I said if a shape is a polygon with four sides, then it's a quadrilateral, which of course is true. Now, here's the moment of truth. Can you write it as a biconditional? And it's very simple. Guys, go back to the P then Q, way up here. You're going to cross out the if. You're going to cross out the then. And where the then is, you're going to replace it with IFF. And I want you to look. That's exactly what we have here. A shape is a quadrilateral if and only if it's a polygon with 4 sides. I do not care if you make IFF uppercase or lowercase as long as you write it. And that's how you write your biconditional. Okay, we're almost finished. 2 more. If an animal's an eagle, then the animal's a bird. Okay, that's true. All eagles are birds. Now let's flip it. If the animal is a bird, then it is an eagle. Think about this. Are all birds eagles? And I hope you're saying no. All birds are not eagles. So I didn't write it out. We did it verbally. If it tells you to write out in your homework, you need to write it out. I'm saying this is false, and you have to tell me just any kind of bird. Tell me a robin. Tell me blue jay. I wrote down hawk. Just write something down. You cannot use that because is the definition of a bird is an eagle? That is not true. All right, the next one. If a number is a prime number, then its only factors are 1 in itself. All right, if I flip it, I say if the factor is only 1 in itself, then it is a prime number. I know this has been a while, but this is the definition of prime. So this is a true statement. So how do you write it out? Easy. Cross off the if, cross out the then, replace it with IFF. Is that what I have? And it is. So is this a biconditional? Yes, it is a biconditional. So we wrote the P double arrowhead Q, which means P if and only if Q. All right, guys, that's everything for the lesson. Let me know if you have questions.